Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to Focused Faith Podcast with Carrie Powers. It's always a pleasure. And it's just great to be together again. I wish sometimes that this looked different and we could be sitting across the table from each other. But for now, this is going to have to do. So thanks again for taking the time to take a listen. We're going to look at prayer today. And I have to start by telling you guys this story. So this happened yesterday. Myself and two friends decided that we would try out this, I think it's fairly new, this place on the other side of town that offers foot massages. So I'm thinking, like a pedicure, right? But without the painting and all of that, but just the other part of it, the massage and all that good stuff. And my feet hurt all the time. I'm a runner and I have bunions, and it's just, I think maybe because I'm getting older, maybe I am starting to get a little bit of arthritis in my feet or just overuse. I don't know, but they hurt a lot of the time. So I thought, that sounds great. Let's do this. And it was cheap. It was like $20 for a half an hour. And I'm like, yes, sign me up. So we go. And it's, they speak English, but not great. So right away, there's a little bit of miscommunication, and we're both attempting to really understand what's happening, and what everybody's saying. But we get situated in our chairs that look kind of fun, but not like pedicure chairs, more like a combination between like a massage table and a chair. So it was quite interesting. And so when we sit down, we're sitting up like you're going to have a pedicure, but then very quickly they come over and they lay us back down so that we're laying flat on our backs. And they bring over a tub of water. And so you put your feet are hanging off the edge into this tub of water. And I'm like, okay, this feels good. I'm enjoying this part and not having a problem with that. So then we also have masks on, right? So we have our masks on, and they come over and they begin to work on like my neck and my head. And so right away I'm confused, and I begin to tell him, no, I'm here for just the foot massage, because they offer other massages as well, but I was just getting the foot massage. So he's like, no, this is part of it. And I'm like, all right, like, I mean, I need that too, right? Like all this hurts too. So he starts working on my neck, and that feels pretty good. And he's finding like all kinds of, knots in the back. And so far so good. And then he puts a thing over my eyes. So now I'm laying back. I have something covering my eyes, and I have my mask on. So it's a little disconcerting. It's a little bit like sensory blackout or something, like it's a little weird. So you don't know what they're doing. And then they go to the end of the table and they get your feet out of the water. So then I'm like, okay, now this feels normal. And that part, I mean, it was, I'm not complaining. Like the whole foot massage thing was pretty awesome. And I was feeling pretty good about it. And I was, doing my best to relax. But as I'm laying there with this thing over my eyes and my mask on, and my two friends on either side that are experiencing, I assume, something similar to what I'm experiencing, I begin to hear things like, it was like this. It's like this. And I'm like, whoa. They're slapping people. Like, when does that happen? Like, am I going to get the slapping thing too? I don't know. Like, should I take the thing off my eyes to see like what's happening, or should I just lay? So I just obediently lay there as I hear like slapping happening. Like, should I be concerned? Like, nobody's hollering. So I guess that's okay. It was just a little weird. And so then he finishes my feet and he finishes up on my calves, which felt really great. So then he's like pushing on my hips and okay. And he picks up my leg and he's moving my leg around and he like twists my leg over and like something pops in my back, which like doesn't feel bad, you know? And then he does the other leg and I'm just like, I don't know what's happening. Like this is the strangest foot massage that I've ever had in my life, but I've never had a foot massage in my life. So maybe this is how it is. I don't know. But we get done and we sit up, you take everything off your face and my friend next to me, you know, her hair is like standing on end, you know, because her person had like worked into her hair and like had wiped her eyebrows off, you know, like it was like, whoa, like this was the craziest foot massage ever. And then my other friend sits up and she's just like, oh, it's the best thing I've ever done. I'm coming back tomorrow, you know? And it was just so funny to see all of our different reactions to it. But my friend Nikki, and she sat up and she's like, this is the best thing ever. And she turns to me and she's like, I was just praying the whole time. And I said to her, you know, I was too, like the whole time that I'm laying there, not knowing what's happening and maybe a little bit scared, you know, but attempting to bring God into the experience, you know, as I'm laying there and relaxing and I'm talking to him and I'm thinking about him and I'm offering my gratitude, which is what Nikki was doing. And it's just awesome when we can approach our life and really make the effort to bring God into every experience that we have. And that's the point of prayer. And that's what prayer should be. You know, it is just communicating. It's communicating with our friend. It's communicating with God in effort to understand him more and to have him be a part of our life as you would with a friend. So it can be so very simple and it doesn't need to be complicated. But I just think it's so amazing that in the Gospels, Jesus takes the time to give an example of what our prayer life should look like, which only makes me think that perhaps they were confused really by what prayer was supposed to be. And maybe they turned prayer into something that it really wasn't. And so Jesus is like, this is really what it should look like when you pray. And he gives a very simple prayer that most of us have memorized. Because if you went to church at all or had any kind of schooling that was religious at all, more than likely, you know, you were taught the Lord's Prayer. It's short, it's simple, and it's a great way to remember him. But I don't think that the design of the Lord's Prayer was so that we would always just recite the prayer. There's no magic in the way that the words are put together, but that Jesus was giving us an example as a good teacher to follow, a template, if you will, to follow of what our prayer should look like. And not that it needed to be rigid and stay directly with that, but that it was designed to show us these components, right? These principles that are laid out in the Lord's Prayer to show us how we should focus when we're praying and what we should focus on. So let's take some time today and look at the Lord's Prayer. And I really kind of want to peel it apart because I think there's some things hidden in there that maybe we missed, that are some really simple but really great principles that help us in every facet of our life. So it's a prayer, but it's also just this great ingredient that we can pull from it to show us what our lives should really look like. So I'm going to read from Matthew, and this is found in Matthew chapter 6, starting at verse 6. And I'm reading out of the NIV mainly because this is kind of how I learned it. So it just feels more natural for me. So again, Matthew 6, starting at verse 6. This then is how you should pray. And this is Jesus talking. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. So again, just a few verses there. It's not very long. It's very, very simple. Most of you probably could recite it along with me in some fashion. Maybe you had a different version memorized. But starting off right away, he starts with a guideline. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. So we should begin our prayer with praise, a focus of who God is, really, his character, the fact that he's a holy God, and the fact that this holy God has invited a very unholy people into relationship with him and invites us into that. So understanding in that very beginning process of prayer that he's God and you're not. Pretty much. It's pretty simple. But sometimes, believe it or not, we get that confused. We do. We get that confused. We forget. So that praise offered to him, to who we're praying to, is really the way that we start. It changes our heart. It begins that focus, and it gets us into that right place of being in prayer with him. The next phrase, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So we begin by worship, we begin by praise, and then we ask for his will in our lives and in our day. The Lord's will, not our own. His plan and his design for our day. That's what we're asking him for. More than likely, God's will for your day might look a little different than your will for your day, or your plan, or your design. God's plan is different from ours, and mainly because he's focusing on the eternal. God's will is about the things of heaven, and not so much as consumed by the things of this earth. We have a tendency to become focused on the things of this world. That's where we live. That's our life. It's really the only reality that we understand or know. But God has a different reality, and God is an eternal being. So his focus looks different than ours, and his desire is for us to become more eternal in our mindset. And what does that look like? You know, so is our prayer life constantly consumed with us asking God for things that are temporal, that are going to pass away? Or are we asking for things that are going to matter on the other side of eternity? So a good way of understanding this or figuring this out is beginning to understand if it's eternal or not. And that is, are we going to be taking it to heaven with us? We're not taking the things of this world with us. We're not taking our possessions. We're not taking our car. We're not taking our home or our boat or all of those wonderful things that God so graciously blesses us with, but they're not going with us. Our 401k is not going with us. What is going to go with us into heaven? And I will tell you what is eternal that you are going to take with you to heaven. Your relationship with God and your relationship with other people. That is what is eternal. So when we're asking God in this prayer, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, what we're asking him for is for him to change our focus to the thing that's really going to matter, which is what is eternal. So that should guide our life. That should guide our decisions. Not that we don't have to work, and not that we don't have to take care of our yard or clean our house or do all of those things that maybe we don't want to do. Of course we have to do those things. And are they eternal? No, they're not. But what should be of utmost importance and what should be primary in what we choose to do with our time? That should be our focus. You got to make room for all the rest of it. But what is the most important? Right? How are we loving God with our actions? And how are we then also loving other people? Because that is eternal. And that is ultimately, that's God's will. That we would understand his love for us, we would offer our love to him, and we would love other people in that same way. C.S. Lewis writes, realizing that life on earth is just a temporary assignment should radically alter your values. Eternal values, not temporal ones, should become the deciding factors for your decisions. He says it best, doesn't he? 2 Corinthians 4:18, in the words of the Apostle Paul to the church at Corinth, he gives us a different perspective here, also a reminder of what we should be focusing on. So let me find it here. I should have had it, marked beforehand, but I didn't. So this is 2 Corinthians 4:18. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. The King James Version states, while we look, and the NIV says we fix our eyes upon. The original Greek word used in this verse for look is skepeo. Skepeo means to look at, to direct one's attention to. So again, Paul is reminding us here, what are we going to choose to focus on? Not on the temporary, not on the things of this world that is just going to pass away, but are we focusing on things that are eternal and of eternal value? Rick Warren writes, when you fully comprehend that there is more to life than just the here and now, and you realize that life is just preparation for eternity, you will begin to live differently. You will start living in light of eternity, and that will color how you handle every relationship, task, and circumstance. Suddenly many activities, goals, and even problems that seem so important will appear trivial, petty, and unworthy of your attention. The closer you live to God, the smaller everything else appears. When you live in light of eternity, your values change. You use your time and money more wisely. You place a higher premium on relationships and character instead of fame or wealth or achievements or even fun. That's taken from his book, The Purpose-Driven Life. So what are we focusing on? And have we begun that process of changing the way that we think? And are we focusing on things that are of eternal value? Ecclesiastes 3:11 states, God has planted eternity in the human heart. We were made for eternity. We were made for more than this temporary world. You know what's so interesting is an example from my own life that I learned that helped me focus of what it looks like to live in light of eternity. This happened to me quite a while ago. But I was in a job that I was not happy in. It was pretty much just, sucking the life out of me. Maybe you can relate. But it was just a job. It was a good job in terms of it paid well, but it was really not what I was desiring to do with the rest of my life. And suddenly, and in this just beautiful way, I say suddenly, but it took several years, but God delivered me basically from that job. And he had provided me something different. And honestly, it was what he had, begun to call me to do, which is step into ministry. And God just had opened this door for me. So I was going to be able to close this other door and walk out of this job. And it was just amazing and a total miracle. And so after I had given my resignation and I knew that I only had like 2 or 3 weeks left at this job, nothing could upset me at this job. You know, the usual things, the usual stresses, difficult people, anything like that, that used to cause me great stress or used to aggravate me and cause me to, my whole day to just tank. It didn't have the power over me anymore. It didn't. And why? Because it was temporary. I knew that I could handle anything and nothing was going to rob me of my joy because I knew the end was in sight, because I could see the end. And I knew I was like, okay, bring it on. Okay, so I have this challenging, difficult person or this challenging, difficult task that I had to do. It didn't matter anymore because the end was in sight. Living in light of eternity is understanding this is temporary. Everything that's on your plate right now, every circumstance, every struggle, every pain, every agonizing relationship, all of these things that you're battling, like there's an end in sight. This is not our home. We're made for more than this, made for eternity. And this is the dress rehearsal for what we're made for. So living in light of eternity allows us to experience joy no matter what's happening in our life or in our circumstances. Because it's not going to last forever. This isn't. The pain or whatever that you're walking through isn't going to last forever. And because of that, because of this hope that we have in Jesus and we have in our eternal home, we can live with joy here. It is what the Apostle Paul meant when he wrote to the church at Philippi, and he said, "Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice." Because it doesn't matter what your circumstances have in store for you when you're living in light with the right kind of eternal mindset and focus. And it really is this incredible answer to this question of joy. And how do you have joy no matter what you're walking through? I did a Facebook post here, I think it was last week or so, and I asked everybody to respond and to rate on a scale of 1 to 10, how they daily experience joy. Where are they sitting? Are they at a 10? Like, what's going on here? And honestly, I responded with, most of the time I'm sitting somewhere around a 5. That's honestly where I'm at. I don't want to sit at a 5. I want to be at a 10. And some people responded that they're at a 10 because they have Jesus, because their joy is found in him, because it's not found in circumstances, because it's because of what he's done that they have this joy. And that's 100% true. And I 100% agree with that. But I want to experience it though, I don't want to just say I have the joy of the Lord. I don't want to just say that I have his strength and I want to actually be walking like I do. And that means I have to look joyful. That means I have to, be a joyful person. So that's what I'm looking for. And I find this incredible little nugget sandwiched here in the Lord's Prayer that we just recite, maybe without really thinking about what we're saying. And it's sandwiched right there. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Your will, Lord. Help me be mindful of walking in this world with an eternal mindset, understanding that this is not my home. And just like when God delivered me from that job, understanding that the end is in sight, I can handle whatever's on my plate, and actually I can do it with joy because it's temporary. So really kind of live in like he's coming back tomorrow. And if he's coming back tomorrow, do the things that are really causing us aggravation or worry or fear or doubt or anxiety, are any of those things really going to matter if tomorrow he was coming back? So keeping that at the forefront of how we're thinking. And that is the very next thing that Jesus says when he's giving us this template of how we should pray. Offer him praise, understand who he is, and then let's change our mindset to your will, your eternal will, and not mine, and not my temporary focus. Man, the enemy wants us focused on everything that's wrong. The enemy wants us focused on everything that doesn't matter. The enemy wants us distracted by work or accumulating money or stuff or things, because that doesn't matter, because we are not taking that with us to eternity. So if the enemy can keep us focused on those things, we will be ineffective for the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God, which should be our focus. Not this world, not the kingdoms of this world, but his kingdom. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Let's change our mindset. Let's be people who think about the kingdom of God and eternity over these temporary things that are continually causing us aggravation. Yeah, that needs to be part of our prayer life, because he's got to do it. Right? He's got to change the way we're focusing. He's got to do it. And we've got to be asking him to do it. But understanding what we're actually asking, not just reciting a prayer, but understanding the focus and the reason for these things that we're asking him to do, so that we can be aware of it and living our lives with purpose and intention. That's really what it's about. Verse 11 says, "Give us this day our daily bread." So provide for us. Sure, absolutely. We need these things of this world. We need our physical things. We need to have food. We need to have all of those things that, clothes, everything like that. And God knows what we need. But I think this verse also means a little more than that. Give us this day our daily bread. Give us the things that we need to sustain us, both physically and spiritually. Give us what we need. Give us the grace that we need to handle whatever is on our plate today. So there's a kind of a double meaning here. Not just talking about bread, but that which provides us the life sustaining, spiritual grace and love that we need to walk through our life. There is so much more here to the Lord's Prayer, and I want to go into in more detail what this looks like for our daily bread and what we need daily from him. But I'm out of time, because I want to be mindful of your time, and I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to encourage you to come back next week, and take a listen as we finish the Lord's Prayer, because there's so many more just jewels in this scripture that we need in order to understand what prayer needs to look like and how we really should be living our lives. And how can we have this kind of joy? And prayer really is about communicating with him. But his desire is for us to understand a little more of really what our focus should be. thank you for listening. Again, this is Focused Faith with Carrie Powers. Definitely follow me on Facebook so that you can see more updates. And when I do my little, ask you for input, you can respond and be a part of the conversation. I would absolutely love that. So again, thanks for listening. Pass the word on, subscribe so you don't miss anything. And next week, you're going to be blessed as well. So definitely tune in for the rest of the Lord's Prayer. God bless.